Bleach Rebirth of Souls is the latest anime fighter from Bandai Namco and developer Tamsoft. This game blends the arena fighter and 3D fighting game genre, giving us a roster of 33 characters to play around with, each one with a different moveset and playstyle faithful to the source material. Complete with a very long story mode, offline mission mode, and online PvP modes, Rebirth of Souls looks like the full package at first, but unfortunately, much like the majority of anime games, is missing a few core features that we've come to expect from any game in this genre. Today I'm reviewing the game after mostly playing it on PlayStation 5. I did try the PC version shortly, which launched completely unplayable and crashing every 2 seconds, but as of last Monday they have issued a fix, so now every version should be fairly similar. My name is Globku, and this is my review for Bleach Rebirth of Souls. Rebirth of Souls has a rather unique structure and fighting system compared to most arena fighters or fighting games. It shares a lot of arena fighter tropes like the player one focused camera, auto combos, and long cinematic supers, but its fighting game influence is rather obvious with 8-wave movement and a couple of mechanics borrowed from Guilty Gear. Every character is unique, but in general, they all have quick attacks and flash attacks. Quick attacks deal little damage, but build a lot of meter and are safe on block. Flash attacks deal more damage, but if blocked, they usually lead to a punish. Everyone also has an unblockable grab, which comes out really fast, unless you simply hold the button, in which case you can travel with the grab from a long distance, making it a lot easier to react to at the same time. On top of that, everyone has a unique signature move, 2 unique supers, and the ability to use Ho-Ho, such as Flash Steps or Sonido, to teleport behind the enemy instantly, or to use them with perfect timing for a cinematic counter. This move uses the reverse bar at the bottom of the screen, which can also be used to activate a temporary buff called Reverse Mode, which has different properties depending on how you activate it. When activated in neutral, it's white and it regenerates your health and meter. When used in a combo, it's yellow and it behaves like a Roman cancel, allowing you to extend that combo further. And when used during the enemy combo, it becomes blue and works like a combo breaker. With these mechanics, your goal is to deplete the opponent's health bar, which leads to a finishing move that gets rid of some of their stocks. The number of stocks you take depends on the character you play, their state during the match, and whether you've chosen to deplete the entire enemy health bar or just land that finisher at 30% health or lower. An easy way to increase the stocks you take is to use your character's evolution. Each evolution is unique. Some change movesets entirely, others are simple buffs to your existing character. A few characters can actually have multiple awakenings during a match, and sometimes even return from the dead for one final shot at victory. The core mechanics of this game are great in my opinion. I think they have created something unique yet very easy to pick up and play, but also something that will have some longevity, because picking up a new character feels like discovering the game all over again. Everyone has their own combo routes, their gimmicks to pressure and mix up the opponent. Everyone has different ranges on their attacks, and a lot of this game is about outspacing your opponent and being in the range that your character likes to be. With punishing is actually real here. And the game is surprisingly well balanced right off the bat. There will always be your top and bottom tiers, but for the most part, everyone feels viable. That is, if you ignore the jank that is plaguing the game right now. It didn't take long for the community to start finding glitches and infinite combos, many of which don't even work offline in training mode. But once you go online, for some reason you can't block on wake up. Some kick-on moves can hit you even if you're holding block and you are above 30% health. Characters can get stun locked by pressing the wrong combination of buttons at the wrong time. There is just a lot of jank here. And with anime games, you always hope they will fix things in the future, but you also just never know if they'll actually do it, and if they do, we don't know if new problems will arise from those patches. So yeah, if you're thinking of buying this for the fighting game itself, I'd say it has a fantastic core, and the rest is up to how well they support the game in the long run. And on a final note, there's also some light customization across most game modes. You can equip these talismans, which are one-time buffs. They disappear from your inventory once used, and you can also equip up to 4 different soul crystals. These are permanent buffs that remain in your character. They have various different effects, like buffing your damage under certain conditions or healing you back when you destroy the opponent's stocks. You can buy more of these. There are many different types at the Urahara shop using in-game currency, and then you can also level them up and make them stronger. These will mostly be used in offline game modes if you want to, but you can also take them online if both you and your opponent agree to using it. From my experience though, online everyone just plays with these completely disabled. But those are the basics of gameplay, so let's move on to the different game modes, starting with the big one, story mode. They have made a pretty bold choice with this game's story. They chose to tell the entirety of the Bleach story from the start until the end of the Arrancar arc, and they didn't skip any of it. They tell the whole thing. This is more than 300 anime episodes, more than 400 manga chapters, all condensed into a single story mode that will take you around 25 hours to beat. This may actually be the quickest way to catch up with the Bleach story, but I don't think it's the best way to experience it. The story is told through a couple of different methods. You have dialogue during battle, you have what I'll call illustration cutscenes, and I absolutely love these. The art is great, and even though like animation is very minor, it just flows super well and it's interesting to look at. But then you also have visual novel style cutscenes, and these last ones are the vast majority of this story mode, and I think they look kind of cheap. The animation work is minimal, you can definitely feel the budget nature of these, and sometimes they do switch the animation budget on and deliver something higher quality, but it happens very rarely. Gameplay-wise, it has its ups and downs. This mode has a ton of unique enemies built specifically for the story. They're not playable outside of this, but they built the model and they gave them an incomplete moveset, so they work as story mode fights for sure. Some enemies are mid-size or giants, and the fighting system kinda changes during these encounters. I like the fan service of including enemies like the Hollows, but in the end, fighting against these types of enemies just wasn't very fun for me. You basically have to hack at them until their guard breaks, and then you just deplete their entire health bar. Honestly, as far as boss fights go, I've played better. During big story moments of the story, the soundtrack picks up and brings more hype to the important encounters. They actually give us a lot of unique tracks for story mode only, as well as full-blown cutscenes that resemble an anime opening at the end of certain arcs. You can choose to play this story mode in 3 different difficulties. I played on the hardest and honestly didn't find it super challenging unless you are going for side objectives. Sometimes the game throws at you these challenges for real moments or just straight up side missions where you have to execute specific actions. And fishing for those in the hardest difficulty did make me retry a couple of times. To top it all off, there's an extensive glossary in case you're ever curious about a term or location, and I think in the end, this story mode was pretty boring. If you've never watched Bleach, you may come out of this with the wrong idea about the show. I find it hard to recommend learning the story for the first time through this game rather than through the anime or manga, and if you were already familiar with Bleach or a fan, the long, low-budget cutscenes make it hard to not hit the skip button. Still, given the size of this story, the amount of work they put into this is actually impressive. It's all voiced and all animated, even if on a budget, which for a 25-hour story mode, it's a lot of work. This is an impressive story mode, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's a story mode that serves anyone particularly well. And those are my thoughts on the main story. However, there's another mode called Secret Stories, and these I absolutely love. Most characters have a secret story, and in order to unlock some of them, you need to complete some secret missions in the main story, making these 2 modes connected. And they treat these secret stories with the same love that they did the main story, but this time, you're not rewatching the show that you potentially already knew about, you're learning new details from the eyes of each character. They are fully voiced too, they have at least 1 illustration cutscene for each, and they have a lot of variety in tone, in seriousness, and honestly in quality too. For instance, Urahara dives into the time he was a captain at Soul Society, and goes slightly into the Fullbringer arc, making it a secret story that's more about his perspective on the main Bleach story. Byakuya, on the other hand, has a goofy plot, where he's concerned with how others perceive him, and has more of that filler feeling to it. Kenpachi defeats Ichigo only to see him get up seconds later, which is how it happens in real time if you just skip Ichigo's inner monologue, and it goes on for every single character in the game. There are dozens of secret stories for you to experience, and each one is around 30 minutes long. All of them put together, this is around 15 hours of content, which is way longer than most anime game story modes go, and it's treated as just a side mode. Many of these missions also include brand new characters for you to fight against. We won't spoil more than this one on screen right now, but also please play Kenpachi's side story. And because many of these stories are brand new, I think I'm able to overlook the low budget cutscenes a lot more. Also perhaps helps that each secret story is shorter, only 30 minutes, so it doesn't even have the time to become boring. So at the end of the day, I think the package as a whole is really impressive and more than justifies the price point for players looking for single-player content, specifically story mode content only, even if a lot of it feels made on a budget. But that's not all that you can do offline, so let's talk about the rest of the offline game modes. As you would expect from a game like this, there is offline versus. You can play against the CPU here or against another player. Playing against another player will always give you the camera perspective of player 1, however, so some of your controls as player 2 may feel inverted at times. The CPU has up to 5 difficulty levels. This is the maximum difficulty, so yeah, I don't think it's very challenging. And there's also no CPU versus CPU, so you always have to play as player 1 versus CPU or PvP. Those are your only options. There's also offline mission mode, which is kind of an arcade or a survival game mode with 3 different difficulties that are unlocked over time as you play the main story. It's basically a random boss generator where the bosses are also equipped with their own soul crystals. And it's a survival battle because your health and your stocks will carry over from one battle to the next, but also will your evolution state and whatever buffs your character has accumulated. The maximum difficulty in this mode can actually be challenging if you're attempting it without any equipment yourself. It definitely forced me to explore the soul crystal system a lot more before I was able to beat it. Each mission boss drops some money, some talismans, and soul fragments that you can use to upgrade your soul crystals. Outside of that, we have some tutorials, starting with a basic tutorial against Yoruichi, and then if you want something a bit more in depth, you have several challenge missions taking you through all the basics. We also have one of the most complete training modes that I have ever seen in anime game history. You can set your opponents to block after certain conditions, you can set your opponents to react to specific attacks on hit or block, you can even record specific actions for your opponent and then play them back on command or on reaction to a hit or a block. The only thing I'd say it's missing is frame data and a display input viewer that it's not completely useless, and I also wish it would remember my settings for the next time I enter training mode, but it always resets them to default. There are also a few bugs that need fixing. For instance, some of the stats may not reset unless you go into the menu and set them again. Our opponents don't really block on the first possible frame, so you might be lagging something that's just completely fake. But even with all of these faults, this is a fantastic training mode. This is miles above most anime fighters available right now. You've got the tools to lab and increase your skills so you can then take those skills online. So let's talk about what you can do against other people over the internet. There are currently only two ways to play against other people online. That is free matchmaking and private lobbies. That means there are currently no ranked matches at all, which for a game that feels built to be competitive is a big omission. Ranked matches have been data mined from the PC version, but no official announcement so far on whether those are coming out at all, let alone when it's happening. When queuing up for a free match, you can set filters for region and connection quality, as well as if you want soul crystals and talismans to be enabled. While waiting for an opponent, you can choose to wait in training mode, so you can get some practice while in queue, and you can also see your connection quality to your opponent before accepting any match. This mode works pretty well for the most part. I've had a few times where matchmaking simply won't find anyone for a very long time though, and I knew I had friends queued for a match as well, and for some reason the matchmaking servers were just not pairing us together, so maybe matchmaking needs some work. As far as lobbies go, you can also customize the match timer, as well as set a password if you wish to make the lobby private. Lobbies only support up to 2 players, which means this game has no way to spectate another player's matches, or to hold a group lobby if you want to play something like King of the Hill. It's a very basic lobby system that I hope gets expanded in the future because it does seem like there's a lot more space for other player names to be added. As far as netcode goes, it is delay-based netcode, but feels pretty good. Not excellent, but good enough for same region matches. On longer distances, the delay starts being more noticeable, but it feels very stable. I'd risk saying this netcode is on the level of One's Justice, which as far as delay-based anime game netcodes go, it ranks among the best. Side note, even though the PS4 version of this game is only able to run it at 30 frames per second, if you play against someone on PS5, their frame rate will not be nerfed at all. So you could be playing against a PS4 opponent and you might never know that. And that's awesome because it doesn't exclude the PS4 from the matchmaking pool in case you haven't made the jump to the next generation yet. With that said, let's close out this review by talking about this game's presentation. Visuals are a big selling point for most anime games, and this one is no exception. I've heard some reports that the game looks blurry on PS5, and I can see it somewhat. I do play this on a 4K monitor, and that's why I bring you this footage in 4K as well, but I'm not entirely sure that this is true 4K because it feels upscaled for most of this gameplay. But then, when a finishing animation happens and it zooms in on a character, they look so clean that it makes me question what the true resolution actually is. During gameplay, this game is full of cutscenes. It interrupts gameplay all the time. Every time stocks are destroyed, you're watching a somewhat long animation. I think over time, some of these may start getting a little old, and there's no way to skip them at all, so it's just a part of the game. I do hope in the future we're able to skip intros at the very least when playing online. You can already do that if you play offline, but online you still have to sit through the entire thing. I love the soundtrack in this game too. It is banger after banger. During gameplay, the background music changes depending on who triggers their evolution, so battle music is also evolving during a match, and you can customize it in the options menu if you have other preferences as well. As a whole, this is probably winning soundtrack of the year for me. It's so full of bangers, it's not even funny. As far as stages go, I do love the variety, but most of them feel a bit low resolution, which contributes to that blurry feeling that some players have. The game also features stage transitions. These are not seamless at all. They couldn't pull them off without a big loading screen in the middle, which is a bit jarring. Outside of gameplay, this game is stylish as hell too. Menus, transitions, cutscenes, everything is extremely on brand for Bleach and super beautiful as well. Booting up this game and simply navigating the menus is a pleasure on its own. With all that said, it's time to score this game, and if you're new here, our review scores go from F, which is a bad game, all the way to A, which is a good game. And this is my score for Bleach: Rebirth of Souls. It's always a compromise with anime games, isn't it? Bleach feels like it launched incomplete, a story that unfortunately we're all too familiar with. It could become one of the great anime games down the line, but as usual, it's launching from an unfinished state and hoping to make it up to players in the long run. Historically, this doesn't work. Players have lost faith in this company's ability to launch a good product right from the start. They see a broken game at launch and they move on because they assume it's just Bandai being Bandai again. And by the time those fixes come in, it's usually too late. No ranked mode, no spectator, a ton of glitches that have been discovered since day one suggest very poor QA testing was done. And this is not to mention how far behind these games are from fighting games nowadays, which usually launch complete with crossplay and rollback netcode. That's how far behind we are with anime games. But still, I think the game deserves praise for how unique its fighting systems are, how balanced the roster already is outside of glitches, and how unique each character plays. Oh, and how extensive this story mode is, both main story and secret stories combined. But those are my thoughts on Bleach Rebirth of Souls. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments down below. That way people have more than just my opinion if they are looking to buy the game. And if you're looking for some uncut gameplay, you can check this video out right here. Thanks for watching. Boy.